Hello and welcome. Hope everyone's doing alright. I'm doing good. Sunday afternoon, brutally cold, but been gardening this morning. Just been down the pub for a fat roast dinner, a couple of pints. Back here, hours gardening, and thought I'd wrap things up today with a little video just to show you how we're all doing. So you can see that I've cut ye olde coping stones out. Pretty tricky, I must admit, even though I've been doing quite a lot of it, and just in general a couple of bits of high levels of annoyance and a couple of bits of low levels of annoyance. So for the main part it looks pretty good, but I'm sure your eye along with mine has picked up the couple of blemishes on it that doesn't make it look too great. There's three of them. The first one is that if we're looking at this centre bed, the two edges to it, the left and the right stones that are coming out towards us, if you have a look at this little octagon jut in, if you like, where the square bit is dead in front of us, the flat bit, you can see the stone on the right is sort of inside the the outer edge of that stone, and then when we get to the left hand side it's on the outer edge of that stone. So a bit annoying that that doesn't line up exactly. A couple of other bits is these two here. I didn't have enough big blocks to do them in. Like this coping stone here dead in centre is one whole block and these are sort of two, so but I basically ran out of blocks. You can see here that the that's what I'm left with after of all the stones that I just found in the garden when I was just digging it up, because obviously we only moved here whatever it was 18 months ago. I just found all these little coping stones under the garden as I was digging it all up, so I think I've used them pretty efficiently. And what I keep saying to myself is that had I known I was going to do that from the start, I would have made it look bang on perfect. But as I built the bamboo bed and the one with the three ferns in first, and then did this extra cyathea bed in the middle and the one with the camellias in it after I'd put the post in, it kind of grew organically. So there was only so much I could do, I think. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy, to be honest with you. The back bit with the bamboo looks really good, I think, with the two fat stones on the outside and then the sort of symmetrical cuts into these half stones. You may or may not notice that for those ones there I had to just cut a stone in half, but for these ones here, in order to get the overhang on it and it to not show the block behind, these are actually more 2/3 of a stone, and it was quite tricky this. First thing actually is just to remind you, like these coping stones here that I've been doing over the last couple of months, one thing I didn't go into is that if we look at the join in this one, can you see the stone on the right? The angle is, the cut right in the centre of us, the angled cut. Can you see the stone on the left is actually longer than the one on the right? And I didn't think anything of it first of all when I was doing this lot, because I was just kind of thinking, well, I'll just get some sand and some dust and just wiggle them about a bit until they look right. But when it came to this, I knew I'd have to be pretty precise, so I had to get to the bottom of why it was doing that. I finally worked it out after a couple of old fashions yesterday. It's when I was doing this, so to cut a 45 degrees, you obviously, if this stone here, this stone is 44, these coping stones are 44 long or wide as we're looking at it, by 22 high. So what you would do for a 45 cut is this going up the left hand side is 22 centimeters. So along the long bit I would come across 22 centimeters, sorry, I definitely haven't been to the pub, and then you would draw a line from that diagonally across to the top left, and that would be a 45-degree angle. So going on from that, if I want, instead of doing a 45, because otherwise what I'd end up with is one with a 45 cut and then one without a cut, if you see what I mean. So what I needed to do was split the 45s in half and make them 22.5-degree cuts. So to my mind, that was the high bit's 22, come across 11, draw the diagonal up, and then that would give me the 22.5, which it does do, except these stones are slightly tapered. If I can just show you, when I say taper, I mean if you look at the left hand side of that, can you see how the bottom is thicker than the top? So The main part of the stone, the bottom bit, is 22 high by 44 long. The top bit is actually 21 by 43. So what I was doing is, for these ones, was doing my cuts but measuring as if I was doing the bottom. And what that meant is that when I've come to opposite cuts, I've lost a centimetre, if that kind of makes sense, because they're just slightly half a centimetre back. The angle is not exactly the same, which means that the size of the cut is different. So got to the bottom of that in the end, which just basically meant that I needed to make sure to be careful with these. So I was as careful as I could do it. I think I've done a pretty good job in general. Again, things can be hidden, so, but it looks pretty good. I was saying last time about, well, not last time, but last time I was going through this, you see how these are full-size coping stones here? I was going to do it all around this sort of edge as well, but when I did finally eye it up, it just didn't, something wasn't sitting right with it, if you see what I mean. So what I had to do, because like I said, to cut one of them in half leaves you about 11, say, width-wise. The blocks are 11, so it means that I wouldn't get any overhang on them without you being able to see the stone at the back. So by a happy accident, the way I started it was, I started off thinking about this planter, because I definitely wanted to do it to tie this planter up with that one there. So I thought I'd better do this one first. And excuse me a minute if it gets a little bit precarious. I'm going to blame it on the rocks, but I've also had a couple of pints. So I think that looks pretty good as it is. The one thing that really shit me up was that I was already worried I wasn't going to have enough blocks to do the whole lot of these little coping stones. And then without thinking, I just measured what that was off and cut a block in half, a whole block in half, and I was just like, no, no, I've just wasted a block doing that. So luckily it all worked out in the end. But this bit here, because I've actually angled the cut on this so you can rest your head on it, you see it slightly tilts back, you can just see it at the end against a straight block. So these aren't actually the right size, so I had to do these a special length, which was 8 centimetres. Was what I cut these, which left me 14 centimetres in offcuts, you know, for the back half of the block. So when I came down here, I tried, these ones are okay because you're not going to see the back of the stone, if you see what I mean. If I went across, you'd probably just see the back of it like you can that one there. So I cut 2 full ones in half there and thought, alright, the little cuts I can make up, you know, the little bits and bobs I can make up that quite easily. But then when I put one of these halves on this wall, it didn't look right. Like I said, there wasn't enough of a overhang, so I had those 2 bits that were 14 centimetres rather than 11 or 12, no, 11. Put them on and they worked just perfectly. So yeah, and then it was just working out my starting point. The tricky thing is when you're coming up to it is that when you're doing these, obviously it overhangs, if you see what I mean. Like I was just using my gloved hand as a guide to put them in there, but it just makes it awkward doing the cuts or trying to get the first couple done once you've done the first couple. Because if you think, like if I take this one off, if you think that was my starting point, I put one in there and then it was like I needed to draw it so that it didn't line up with the edge of the block, but it actually lined up with the overhang. So, but once I'd done that, it was pretty much plain sailing all the way around. Like I said, I ran out of big blocks to do these, so I've just done them in a couple of halves that I had sort of left over, which we'll have to do because I don't have any bigger ones now. So yeah, you know, it is what it is, but I'm happy with that. This little bit looks weird where it's got that sort of the straight bit coming out from the wall and then the sort of triangle there. It looks a bit weird, that, but I don't know if it just looks weird because it's me. Once I get a couple more big ferns in there, I don't think I'll notice it as much, and I don't think anybody else will notice it anyway. So yeah, there we go. But I'm pretty happy with that. I'll just wait till I go to put the plants in a few weeks time, well probably a month or so, and then I'll cement them down after I've done that, because no doubt I'll knock them all off while I'm doing that. So yeah, that's ready to go now, that bed, so that's happy days. I've done the rest of this patio as well, just to put the bench on. I've left the bench up, as you can see it's up there. So it's pretty much as good as I'm going to get it. No one's ever going to see that at the back. I didn't need to go that far back, so, but I've done it anyway, just taken them up and levelled them all off. This one was a bit of a mild levels of annoyance, because I'd said the good thing about doing this sort of patio where you just lay it on sand is that you dig it up, put the inch of sand down, drop them all on so that they're all, you know, they're not wobbling, and then you walk on them for a bit, and then you come back, take them up, and then just put another dusting of sand down, and that's sort of how you do it. But for this one, it must have been like a bridge basically, with the two ends were sort of on something, the middle bit wasn't, because when I walked over it the other day, boom boom boom, I snapped it, so that was a bit harsh. What was even more harsh is that boom boom boom, I snapped another stone as well. That is that one over there by the ticky head. You can just see it. I've just cut that one this morning, got it up, chucked it in there to make sure it was alright, went off to the pub, come back, forgot that I hadn't actually fitted that all in right, you know, put new sand in and taken it up. So when I've been messing around with these up here, I just jumped off the top of that top step onto here, and boom boom boom, I've snapped it. So that one's only been in there about 3 or 4 hours, and it's already gone. So, but I'm not gonna, I have got a couple of spares. Like I said, I was going to get a couple of spares for just such situations, but I'll leave that one in there, I think, and I'll wait until I'm totally done in this whole section, and then I'll take it up and do it again then, I think, because otherwise I'm just going to keep going through stones. I think it must be, there was a load of worms in where that stone had snapped, so I'm wondering if somewhere a big chunk of manure or something had got into the soil. I didn't break it up obviously, and then they've come up eating that, and they've left a little air pocket there, if you sort of see what I mean. That's the only thing I can think of. Definitely not my shoddy work, definitely not. Because yeah, it's not like I would drink anything that would make me not pay attention to things. So yeah, but here we go. Yeah, so you can see that I am starting to do this. These steps are cemented in there, like I said last time. So what I'm doing is, you may think this is one whole cut, and this was one of them whole coping stones, and I said that I didn't have any left. But what it is, this one, you could probably just see, oh, it's a beast. It's got like a big layer of cement. If I try and take that cement off, it'll crack the stone. So, but what I want to do for this bit is, you see that sort of fence at the back that's holding it all in. Basically, if the sort of mud was that height and I sat my patio on top of that, or the seats are sort of on, effectively on top of that, that's the perfect height. And what it is that is a bit lower. It's about 2 or 3 inches low, so I need to put another step on that just to take up the level. So I've just been messing around. I had these big fat ass coping stones that were along the top of this wall, so I've just been playing around with them. They're a bit too big though, so I've just been trying to mix it up, and I've got some rocks and trying to get it all, but I think I need a couple more old fashions before I see the truth of how that's going to work. So yeah, it's a bit too cold today and it's starting to get dark, so I'll probably forget about this now for a few weeks. But that's my kind of next thing in this area, and then what that'll do is, what goes on top of that wall will be alright, and then I can put this trellis in finally at its right height, get a climber, pop that in, and then hopefully that'll do something this year. But as I said before, I need to stop thinking about stuff like that, and I need to start thinking about stuff that I've got. So the 3 cyaphias are sound. I've got places for them, one in there, one to the right in the other bed, and then one over in that corner somewhere, maybe in and around where that fig tree is. You probably can't see it, to the right of the sort of 3 ferns there, between that and the fatsia, or to the right of the fatsia where you can just see that old deciduous fern underneath the climbing frame, sort of in that area, something like that, or maybe even in that bed over there. So they're happy, as in I've got a place for them. The only thing I really need to think about is the trellising, mainly because if I'm going to put trellis up, it needs to be the same sort of trellis all the way around. You can already see I've got a tightly packed square trellis there. Oh shit, sorry. You can see I've already got a tightly packed square trellis there, and then I've got a sort of tightly packed diamond trellis there, as I'm calling it. So I need to decide on what top. The one I'm probably leaning towards is this design, i.e. the diamond one, but like the next size up. So effectively this cross brace here that I'm just pointing out, take that out, and that would be this big square would be the hole, if you sort of see what I mean in there, like that sort of size. Giant honeysuckle, which is the one plant I know where it's going, but I'm not prepared for. I'm going to put it in there somewhere in around the bottom of that coil, I expect, near the fence post, and then grow it up here, obviously. Don't want too much trellis sticking out on top of that, because the whole point of that seating area being up high as it is so that I can get the view of the woods in the back there at the top, if you see what I mean. So I don't want a massive trellis there, but I do need something for the giant honeysuckle to get up to this year, because I've got a feeling it's going to go some. It looks like it's already growing really fast. It's almost too big for the windowsill, and it was only half the windowsill sort of, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago. It's really going some. So yeah, I'll put that out. That'll be a 6-weeker. The Cyathias I'm hoping to get out in about 4 weeks. That and the Inseti I'll probably take out in 6 weeks time. So as long as I've got something done for there. But it's really expensive trellis. I was looking at some of it. It's about 30 quid a panel for a 60 by 180, and I reckon all the way around I'm going to need 11 of them. So suddenly we're up at 300-400 quid, which made me think, shall I build a trellis myself, just buy loads of batten and make it like a creative design myself, like I was saying, like a dragonfly or something. But yeah, it's it's the tying it all in that's the issue, and am I getting away from myself? So yeah, you could probably hear the winds picking up. I'm definitely getting cold and starting to shiver. So yeah, next one I'll probably do will be a little tour around the garden, just to see where we're at, because that'll be easy. And like I said, I'm busy for the next few weeks. But yeah, as opposed to, you know, what I've done, I'm pretty happy with that. It means I've got loads of space. So my next phase really is trellising within the next 6 weeks, just a couple of bits just to get out there, so I don't need to buy it all at once, and then just tidy all this up. It looks really untidy, but it's, as I say to the wife, it's surface dirt, as in you can see all the pots. That's pretty much all pots underneath there. Where the blackboard is between us and the table and the blackboard is basically bags of bags, if that makes any sense, like all the old topsoil and sandbags and things like that. And then just all these stones, which, you know, I'll just find a place for, as in probably at the bottom of the soil, or over here, because you always need aggregate when you're doing this sort of thing. So yeah, anyway, hope your Sunday's been good. Mine's been fine. Time to have a bit more of the old Asahi, which is a very danger drink. So yeah, good times. Hope you're having good times too. In a bit.